Hey, this is Nick Milvoy.
And this is Jason Shadrick.
And this is the 100 Guitarist podcast, where each week we talk about one of the 100 guitar players that we think you should know. This week we're talking about The Edge.
That's right.
And we're bringing in a special guest who knows quite a bit about The Edge.
It's in his blood. It's literally in his blood.
A lot of information. Let's just talk about Nathaniel for a minute. Nathaniel Murphy is really one of the best gear demo dudes on the internet.
Yep. He's you see him in a bunch of Chicago Music Exchange videos. He has a lot of those solo arrangements of tunes where he's playing several notes at once. So yeah, Nathaniel's a great hang. He is born in Ireland, so he has some real authority to speak from. Even though when he told me, that album came out when he was 12 and I was in college, I was like, ugh. But also a soccer aficionado, as most Europeans are. So we do there's a little bit of soccer talk in the episode.
And if you're wondering, Nathaniel Murphy, I don't know about this guy. You may know him better by his Instagram handle, which is Zeppelin Barnatra.
Yep.
And that's where he does a lot of his solo arrangements of stuff.
And he'll have to tell you where that name came from. It has to do with where he grew up, but I can't give you the details.
We did not talk about it in the episode.
We didn't talk about it, but there's definitely a story behind that name. He wanted it to stick out, and it does.
It does.
It does. Yeah. So great Instagram follow. Mm-hmm. If you're in Chicago, head on down to CME, say hi to Nathaniel, tell him we sent you, and then ask him about his favorite U2 riffs. Ask him to show you how to play some of his favorite U2 riffs.
Yeah, you won't have to ask him about his favorite ones because
you'll know.
But you can ask him how to play them.
That's right. Try and stump him. See if you can stump. Yeah, stump him. Next time you're in the store, try and stump him with a U2 riff. Let's see what we can do here.
All right. So before we get to Nathaniel, we want to remind you can get at us. You can send us a message at 100guitarists@premierguitar.com. You can text or leave a voicemail at 319-423-9734. And while you're at it, wherever you're checking this out, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe, whether that's YouTube or Apple Music or Spotify, anywhere. We're on all the spots.
That's right.
So we want to thank Voodoo Lab for sponsoring today's episode. Voodoo Lab has a legacy of excellence and innovation. They've been designing and manufacturing professional electronics for recording and touring artists since 1986. Did you know that?
I did not. I know it's been a long time because, for you and I, Voodoo Lab has just kind of been ubiquitous as far as power, pedal board, power supplies.
Yeah.
And, for years and years, that's kind of been the only one I've known. I've used several of them. I still have two of them on one board I have here at the office and one board I have at home. And, 1986.
Yeah, I have the Pedal Power Plus 2 on my pedal board. That is my go-to power supply that when people ask me in the past, when students ask me or when somebody reaches out to me and they're like, I need to get my power situation, Voodoo Lab Pedal Power Plus. That's the one. That's the standard. I've tried some others. This is the one.
It's isolated power. That's one of the most important ingredients of a good sounding pedal board. Is do not underestimate the value of clean power. Mm-hmm. And even under the worst AC line conditions, the Voodoo Lab pedals sound and perform best. They're handmade in the USA, and every product is built one at a time in their Northern California factory with the finest materials for rugged availability. And a good litmus test for that is just watch rig rundowns and count how many times a Voodoo Lab power supply pops up on a board.
All over the place.
The place. Yep. So thanks to Voodoo Lab for sponsoring today's episode. And should we get to it?
Let's bring on Nathaniel.
All right, here we go. All right, Nathaniel, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, mate. Thanks for having me.
So recently we had you in the pages of Premier Guitar talking about what your signature pedal would be. Mm-hmm. And basically, I'll paraphrase, you said it would just sound like the Edge. So I'm like, well, if we're doing an Edge episode, we got to call Nathaniel.
Yeah, I mean, it's from being a kid and trying to replicate his tone, which I could never do because I didn't have all the pedals.
Mm.
It was very frustrating. I mean, the sounds that he gets, I absolutely love, and it's interesting to see his kind of his change in kind of sounds over the years. Even say from Rattle and Hum to Achtung Baby, there's a huge difference.
Mhm.
You know,
Huge
Achtung
difference.
Baby, his tones on that are incredible. You know, so yeah, I think my signature pedal would just be press a button and no messing about, no having to dial it in, or no
No
messing.
presets, just on off.
It's just there, right? The fly, right there you go, boom. You know, or it could be even better than the real thing, right? Boom, there you go, exact sound.
And
That's
then
what I
just
like.
maybe one big knob that's just more and less.
There
Because
you
you
go.
gotta
Yeah.
you gotta do it for the room. You gotta be practical here. So just one big knob that's more of that or less of that.
True.
Right.
So that would be it. You know.
So tell me about where you grew up, first of all, because we want to give some geographic context to all this.
Yeah, so I was born in the west of Ireland, a place called Belmullet in County Mayo. So very very small town on the coast. But I grew up in Manchester. I moved to Manchester when I was a couple of years old, and yeah, a place called Levenshulme, just on the edge of Burnage and Longsight and all that. So that's where I grew up, and I started playing guitar at 13.
So being directly from Ireland, when were your earliest memories of U2 as a thing? It could even, I mean, possibly maybe before you even played guitar. When did you kind of realize there was this band out there called U2?
It was definitely before I played guitar, but not long before, I'd say. So I'm probably about 11 or 12, and I'd see on like VH1 the video for where the streets have no name will come on. You know, they're on the roof. That come on, or it'd be I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Where they're in Vegas, kind of walking around, and the edge has got that kind of. I think it's like a black Yamaha.
It's like a cutaway acoustic looking thing. Yep.
Exactly, yeah. So those are two of my earliest memories, and also hearing One as well. So they'd probably be my earliest. But again, I wasn't playing guitar at this point, but you know, I was intrigued by it because I always wanted to be a drummer.
I mean, U2 is a good band for that too.
They are.
Some of my favorite drum parts.
Yeah, of course. Any particular ones that stand out?
Yeah. They're also the standout songs I'm going to talk about if we talk about standout guitar songs.
Oh,
They
yeah.
seem to go hand in hand together. But yeah, I would say Bullet the Blue Sky. That's probably number one. That drum part is just like the sickest.
Yeah.
And Sunday Bloody Sunday.
That's the one that always sticks out to me.
Those drum parts are just unbelievable.
So many.
So then you started to get into guitar. When did the sheer genius of the delay pedal come into your life?
Well, do you know, I didn't know what a delay pedal was in my first, couple of years of playing guitar. I didn't know. Because the first riff, now there's no delay on it, but the first riff I ever actually learned by ear when I was a kid was Discotheque.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Still one of my favorite riffs. You know, I'd been playing guitar maybe a few months, and I'd have to wait for it because we didn't have the CD at the time. That was on Pop, I think. It was on that record. We didn't have that, so I'd wait for it to come on VH1 because they kind of replay the videos, over and over. So I'd wait for that to come on. I'd have to try and hum it over and over. I'd try and watch where he's doing it. It's like dun 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 dun. So I'd do that over and over. But in terms of delay, I remember trying to do. But in terms of the delay, it would have been still haven't found what I'm looking for. You know that kind of thing he does at the start, ding, 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 little things like that. And even on Streets Have No Name, I didn't know what a delay pedal was. So I'd be doing digga 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 digga, trying to double the notes with my right hand. It kind of similar to Welcome to the Jungle. The dinga dinga dinga. I'd go back and forth between the B string because I didn't know what a delay pedal was. So
You're working too hard. You're working
I
too
was.
hard.
I didn't know any better though. I didn't know. So yeah, my kind I'd read about it then that he was a huge purveyor of delay pedals. Sometimes two. Well, mostly kind of two at once. And that's a tricky world for me trying to dial that stuff in. I love it though.
Well, lucky for you, I'm going to give a shout out to this website. I sent this to Nick right before we
Oh
went.
yeah.
It's amnesta.net/edge_delay, which basically takes every song, the classic stuff at the very least. I don't think it's covers a lot of the more recent stuff, but it breaks it down and tells you what songs use a 16th delay, what use a 3/32, a 3/8, which ones
Yeah.
use 2 delays, and then it gives you the millisecond settings for all the classic tunes.
You got
He also talks about how to dial them in on a Line 6 DL4.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Which is awesome. Which is like, that's so much more useful actually than knowing how to dial it in on like a Korg SDD 3000.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
Like they don't. You can tell these are early days because they don't really call it a dotted eighth delay. They call it a 3/16 delay, which I think is pretty hilarious. But like the intro and solo to The Fly is one of my favorite uses of the dotted eighth thing. And that is, if I'm checking my notes here, 415 milliseconds.
This is crucial.
This is crucial. Could you imagine? You're in a U2 tribute band, which I'm sure has probably crossed your mind at some point in your life, Nathaniel. Just the sheer, you get the set list together, and then you got to program. Because you got to get those delays right. And at this point, with resources like this, there's no excuse why you can't get the delay on, One Tree Hill correct. Do you know what I mean? Like, you just got to get it right.
But it'd be a nightmare, though, wouldn't it? Imagine, like, you're on a YouTube tribute band. You got to try and dial in all these sounds.
No way. That's not the tribute band I want to be.
It's too much work.
I don't know. I'm curious. Like, I mean, you said you learned some songs. Like for me, U2 were a band that for a long time in my guitar playing, I didn't learn the songs because the sound was, I learned some of the songs, but I'd learn a riff and sort of decode it, or, whether it was me figuring out or finding a guitar magazine, and the part would be so simple and it didn't sound like the record. I couldn't make it sound like the record because, like you said, like I didn't have the gear. I didn't have a delay pedal or even the right delay pedal for even. I didn't have a delay pedal for a long time, and I didn't have the right delay pedal to sound even close to the edge for a much longer time. And so it was like it didn't give me the reward, the visceral sort of reward of playing those riffs and feeling as cool as the songs. Like they were so unobtainable to sound like that. So I just stayed away from it. Like, how did you feel about that? Like learning these songs and when you were getting playing?
Well, it sounded shit when I was doing it, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do. It could be. Let me see. I've made a load of notes here. It could be. Let's see. Elevation. Wow, 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 wow. I haven't got like the whammy or whatever, So it's like dun 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 dun. To me, it's not sounding great. Or Pride in the Name of Love, like getting the harmonics at the start, the delay. And it's like I'm doing the harmonics. I can't redo them because it just doesn't sound any good. It doesn't have that thing to it. Or let's say Mysterious Ways.
Oh man,
there's so many that you want to learn them, and you can learn them. They ain't gonna sound right.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Mysterious Ways? I would never. I wouldn't even touch that now. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know how to make that sound. I mean, I could Google it and find out, but it's like it just. What's the point? It's such the sound is so iconic as part of the riff.
I remember when I was a kid, I didn't have a delay pedal, but I had like a little multi-effects unit, probably a Boss something or other. And
fancy.
And then later I got like a DD5 or DD3, one of the two. But I remember the first time when I kept hearing people talk about this dotted eighth delay. And you set, you're like, okay, here's the setting for dotted eighth, and you turn it and you hit it. And the first time you do it, you don't really notice, if you're just checking a delay, like, chunk, just to kind of see what the feedback is and stuff. you don't really notice that missing 16th note. And then you start to play something, and you start, what really the breakthrough for me was treating the delay pedal as a metronome. And when you are able to lock in to play something on that dotted eighth delay in time with the delay, it's like the world opened up, because that led me to like the Albert Lee stuff with the dotted eighth, where you can play these
Yeah.
cascading scale things, right? And I know Edge didn't do a whole lot of that, but that was kind of my way in, is I'd heard these Albert Lee things, but man, nothing feels better when you're locked into a dotted eighth thing and you're playing a riff in time, and you're like, wow, I'm only playing this much actual music, but it sounds so much bigger. You know what I mean? And those are the things that, it's funny. Sometimes I'll be at a sound check and I'll have a delay setting and I'll do that. And those are the things that make non-guitar players turn their head. Like, what is that? Because that's a lot of notes coming by, and I know you're not. It doesn't look like you're working that hard,
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's this. Like I said, it was frustrating as a kid, but now obviously modern day. I suppose in one way, do you have an excuse not to be able to sound like him these days? I don't know.
Right.
There's obviously certain little things here and there that help. The guitar, the Herco pick or whatever. But he's got so many tones. I mean, you guys, for example, what are some of your favorite tones of his?
To me, I tend to like the two periods I really like are kind of the classic Joshua Tree Unforgettable Fire era, and then also the Zooropa Pop All That You Can't Leave Behind era.
Yeah.
And I know those are kind of, there's not a lot of space between them, but the tones are so different.
Yeah.
Like, so different. Like, to me, the classic, the Unforgettable Fire, the Joshua Tree stuff, that is, you get a Strat with a Memory Man and a Vox.
Yeah.
And, you can get most of the way there, I would say, or at least convincingly. And then when you get into the pop, All That You Can't Leave Behind, the Beautiful Day stuff, those are big, like stadium sized tones. You know what I mean? You need a lot more firepower to get through those. And it's been fun to kind of break those down a little bit and try to, like you said, when you're playing some of those like Discotheque or Beautiful Day, it's like, okay, learning the chords are one thing, but if you don't match the right tone and the right delay thing for it, it's not quite there, which makes me think there's probably a reason why you two never did like an MTV Unplugged.
Well, yeah, I mean, can you imagine how would
it's
would it work?
Like you could get the delay stuff there, but it's like there's so much more that you need to do to flesh out that sound.
Well, yeah, I mean, imagine you two unplugged and are doing, I don't know, with or without you. There's so many guitar layers there. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not going to do it all himself. And do you really want another guitarist sitting in with you two? I don't think you do.
No,
I don't know.
No. I mean,
right? So,
instrumentally, U2 is a trio. You know what I mean? And the whole thing that makes Edge is that he needs to fill up so much sonic space. You know what I mean?
Oh, it's huge. Yeah. So we were just kind of going on about the difference in tones. And I mean, I mentioned earlier about the Edge, his difference in tones, like from Rattle and Hum to Achtung Baby, for me, is such a huge change.
Yeah.
I mean, you start off with Zoo Station is the first on that album, and it's like, what is is this the same
Such
band
a different thing.
It's only 3 years. I think Rattle and Hum was 1988, Achtung Baby 1991. So you go from, and the first, 4 songs on the album? No, first 5 songs. So you got Zoo Station, even better than The Real Thing. 1 until the end, I think might be similar kind of order. But those tones immediately are so different.
Yeah. Yeah, they're so different. I do feel like to me, when I think about Achtung Baby, I think about Mysterious Ways. But even better than The Real Thing also. I feel like the sound is in like the modulation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's the key with the delay. is that it's not just a digital delay, but it which he uses both digital and analog pretty regularly. You know, he doesn't strike me as a guy who's all one or the other, but
Right, because he goes back to the memory man.
he goes back to the memory man, and you have to have that modulation on the memory man, like to get the right vibe. You know.
You know, I was listening to Even Better Than the Real Thing earlier today, and it's always been, you know, in terms of his best solos, dare I say, you know, I think that is up there. His solo on that, the slide solo.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's so good. I mean, the tone is out of this world. You can hum every bit of it, and it's just a great solo. You know, it's the whole thing. You know, and then like, so you've got that type of solo, and then you've got, say, the solo for With or Without You, which is just dun, dun, dun. What I mean, if that was any of us three as guitar players, would we do that? You know,
No, I'd play
for a
too many
solo?
notes.
Yeah.
We wouldn't do that, would we?
Yeah.
But the entire planet knows how that goes, you know, and they can all hum it, you know. So that's the great thing as well. I think that he doesn't kind of get credit for. You know, he can write more technical solos, but you can hum them all. You know, that's what I love.
It's so much more important than getting a whole stream of notes out there, which is what I always tend to do. So as far as sound goes, what about then you get up to like All That You Can't Leave Behind? That was supposed to be, that was sort of pitched as this like return to U2's earlier sounds. To me, I was listening to it last night. I haven't listened to that album in a long time. I've listened to it a million times in my life. And it's been a while. And listening to it, I do get, I didn't used to get, like, I feel like that album is such a modern sounding record that I didn't really understand how it was getting back to the 80s. It just sounded like something different. But now I sort of hear in Edge's tone, like they're more guitar-y kind of tones like he used earlier in his career, where it feels more like if the 90s thing is like a modulation based thing he's doing, it's like by All That You Can't Leave Behind, it's back to just like guitar and delay type sounds. Not to say that there's obviously modulation and stuff there, but it's not the prominent effect. It's back to being guitar and delay.
Yeah, I mean, well, on that particular album, so I mean, you open what with "Beautiful Day," I believe is the first track off that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen a clip of, well, he's got the Explorer back for a start, right? On that particular track. So I mean, maybe that certainly has to affect what you kind of said there. That it's kind of going back in time, you know, to kind of the Boy album. You know, that oh, that's an Explorer. I know that. You know, that tone. So yeah, on "Beautiful Day," well, he played a part, and from what I've heard, the band were like, "No, you can't do that. That's we're past those days of you playing those kind of little riffs."
Oh yeah, yeah.
They were like,
I think he talks about that, and it might get loud, right?
Yes,
He points
I
that out.
think
Yeah,
yeah.
While he's holding the Explorer.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, I love that tone he gets for the Explorer. You know, I mean, even on, say, "I Will Follow" and Out of Control, dun, 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 you know, just so good. But on that album, particularly "Beautiful Day," because I was saying to you, Jason, earlier, when I first heard that song, I hated it. You know, don't know why. I was a kid. I mean, that came out in what, 2000? So I think I'm like 12 or 13 or something like that. Hated it. You know, I don't know why. Me and my brother were like, "Yeah, this is shit." This. But then we finally like, you know, this is actually incredible. And in England, it was used on the highlights for the football on a Saturday evening, the Premiership. That was used. So it's like, there's always that. You know, it's a beautiful day, and you got clips of people scoring goals. But again, the little licks he does on that are so wonderful. On the second verse, that is one of my favorite Edge parts that he's ever done. It's just so beautiful. That on the Explorer, you know. So I probably sound silly doing it, but you know the part that I mean, though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good, and then you get into the kind of chorus. They just work so well. But then on that same album, you know, you've got stuck in a moment you can't get out of. Great tones, great snare sound on that as well. I've got to say, I've always liked the snare on it. Elevation, walk on. There's just so much going on.
Oh, the walk on sound is really cool.
Yeah, that is a very cool one.
It's so big.
Yeah.
I think this might be top 3 Edge. I mean, really, all of Edge's 98% of his recorded output has been on U2 records. You know what I mean? He doesn't really do much outside of it. But this has to be, for me, a top 3 Edge record, All That You Can't Leave Behind.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I mean, as far as his guitar parts and the tones, to me, it's right up there. I can't wait, because this year will be the 25th anniversary of this record.
Oh,
Wow.
man.
25
Oh,
25 years.
I bought it the
out in
day it came
2000.
out. That doesn't feel great.
Well, it doesn't feel great to know that he just said he was 12 when it came out and I was in college.
I feel old now as well.
Jeez. I thought you were going to be like, yeah, I was like 17, 8. No, I was 12.
Uh-huh.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I'd barely been playing the guitar at that point, so it was very silly of me to think that, But then it's kind of the album after, How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. You got Vertigo, and it's just straight up rock and roll. Just a great riff. And then, is there many other guitarists who have made such a great use of just muted, things like that?
Right?
Just muting. He's not doing anything with the left hand. He's just muting. It's everywhere, all over the albums. That's just one song. On the choruses, lights go out. It's absolutely everywhere. What's the other one? Until the End of the World. Just before that riff comes in, you got that great drum groove, and then he comes in with the syncopated little, strums here and there.
Yeah, the percussive thing is so important.
Oh,
yeah.
Definitely.
Have you ever? How many times? I'm sure you've probably seen U2 live, Nathaniel.
I have never had
You've
the
never?
opportunity.
Okay.
Listen,
Same.
I would give anything. I really contemplated going to see them at the Sphere.
Mm-hmm.
No, it would have cost me an arm and a leg. It would have been a fortune. But part of me was like, the snob in me was like, it has to be Larry Mullen as well, though. That's very snobbish, of
Right.
me,
I don't think it is. I think that is. I think that's.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because I want to hear like pride in.
There's no subbing.
I want to see him doing that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me.
So I want to talk about the Sphere. This is kind of interesting. That at the Sphere, you don't use amps live in the room. That's right, Jason? No amps.
That is
correct.
Nobody
uses
it's
amps.
been confirmed. You can
So
use
amps don't get used.
You can use amps, but you can't have them on stage.
Right. So Edge, I guess, like some people have amps in booths somewhere off stage, and then Edge decided to use the universal audio pedals, the amp pedals, which I think is like, I think more should be made of that. Like that, there's no bigger endorsement, right, for the validity of using a modeling amp. Like when I heard that, I was like, man, if he'll use a modeling amp and trust it to sound right, like it's got to be the best. It's got to be great because he can have anything, and he's deciding to use pedal amps. Like that's as cool as it gets.
Yeah. Which one was? Because there's one that is like based on a Vox, right?
I think it was he was using the Ruby and the Lion. I think
the Ruby is the
Vox
Vox,
one,
right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I didn't know he was doing that. That's pretty.
Isn't
cool.
that wild?
That like
of all people, right?
As let's say you're a young guitar player, or just a guitar player at home, and it's like you want to get close to his sound. All right, all I've got to go and do is get that pedal, and I'm a portion of the way there instead of spending God knows how much on the amp. So I like that. I like that he's doing that.
Yeah.
And I think the most underrated part of Edge's tone is his picks, because he uses a very specific pick. Have you heard it? You've heard about this, right, Nathaniel?
The blue Hercos.
Yes.
But now I've never seen one in real life. So whenever I try and do the Edge stuff, so I play with the Jazz 3s with the Max grip,
Yep.
the red ones. So I just turn it around and kind of blag my way through it. So, you got one there.
I got one here. I feel focus here. And see, here's the thing, though. You can see that there. You can see how the ridges don't go to the edge of the pick.
Hmm.
The Hercos, you have to have them go to the edge of the pick.
Right.
That's the thing. This will get you there. That these ridges will get you, but you have to. Your pick has to go deeper into the string to get that sound. You know what I mean? And a number of years ago, maybe it's been 10 at this point, I was in New York shooting a bunch of rig rundowns, and one of the rig rundowns we shot was at the Spider-Man Broadway show that they did. And there were 3 guitar players there. Ben Butler, Zane Carney, apologies, I'm blanking on the third one, but it's up online. You can check it out. And they had even in the score, it said use Herco pick here, use this pick here. And Edge had come in and given all the guitar players, like from on high, he brought you the Herco pick, right? Right from, because I was like, oh man, you guys have any extras of those? I'd love to have one. And he's like, well, we don't have many, but they did slip me one. And I'm like, it's at home. I meant to bring it in today. But it's a blue Herco pick, and it has the same kind of feel as these Max Grip ones. But the grip has to go, for it to really work, it has to go to the edge of the pick. And when he flips the pick around, you hear that scratching. Like even Nick, that video we looked at today, when he's playing that riff from Beautiful Day, you can hear just from the mics in the room, not coming through the amp, but you can hear that scratching come through.
Yeah.
It's adds such a unique layer. But now I don't know why he actually did that. Was he consciously doing that when he was younger, or when he was recording? It's like, oh, I kind of like the sound of this, or was it just?
My understanding is that it's just always has that like when you hear, on like Streets Have No Name and stuff, you can hear the scratchiness, and I think maybe people had kind of chalked that up to the chiminess of a Vox. But in interviews, he says it's that flipped around Herco pick. So he's using the big side of it with the ridges going all the way to the edge of the pick and digging into it. Even on acoustic, you can hear it come through.
What are some of our favorite, essential, whatever we want to call it, Edge tracks?
All right, I'll go first.
Okay.
I have to think. I'm going to go with Pride in the Name of Love. I think is an essential one. There's just I think you could almost distill all of the early Edge stuff, technique wise, what he uses, how he uses delays, how he crafts his parts. All of that is in that song. At some point, he obviously expanded it and made a whole career out of it. But when we're talking, this is October of '84 when this comes out. He was, as far as what we know of as the Edge sound, it was developed by Unforgettable Fire, I think. That's my first pick.
Is that your only pick?
No. I'm saving some. I want to leave some crumbs for y'all. I want to leave some crumbs for y'all to pick. I don't want to pick them all.
All right, Nathaniel, what do you got?
Mine. That would have been mine. I've literally got 4 pages
of
notes. I'm not even winding you. I've got 4 pages of notes. That's how big a fan I am. Pride would have been up there for me as well, because it's, in terms of his playing, his techniques, like you kind of mentioned, you've got your harmonics that he kind of uses as riffs. You've got your kind of two string riff ideas. Ding, 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 ding. You've got that. Then you've got your kind of chords with the open strings ringing out for those verses. Also, his solo part on that is so wonderful as well. Just kind of letting that B string ring up. Again, I don't think any of us 3 here would ever think of doing that. We'd think, oh, that's too simple, or we'd never come up with that. But you know what? Other ones, this is hard, man. I've got to look through my notes here. Honestly, this is.
Well, that can be your pick too.
Right, that'll be my pick. It's got to be. That's one of my favorites.
For me, I mentioned it earlier. Bullet the Blue Sky. it's Bullet the Blue Sky is just that's so big.
Yeah.
And it's so there's all that spooky stuff in the beginning. He's building tension and cool guitar, just like histrionics, just scratchy sounds and stuff like that. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. But I mean, even with Pride, it for me it brings back a lot of memories as a kid. Because in the video it showed like there's like two towers in Dublin. I think it's around the Pool Beg area. I think they're like red and white circles around it. I don't know if you'd ever recognize them from some of the videos. I think it's in the Pride video. But when you're coming into Dublin on the boat, from Wales or from England or whatever, that would always remind me of that song. That song would come back, because I do that, 2-3 times a year as a kid. I'm going to Ireland, see my granny and my cousins and all that. You'd see that in the distance, and automatically in your head, that riff just plays in your head, dun, dun, which is a bit silly on my part, but it's just a lot of great memories from that. So there's that aspect of it for me as well.
That's a good one. All right. I'm gonna pick. We can each pick like two more here. I'm gonna go most underrated U2 song. I think is "Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of." I think there's so much texture in that, and I think that like really kind of kicked off. I think kind of their third era, I guess you could say. If the first era is like the first three records, then the second era is kind of that middle section with Unforgettable Fire and Joshua Tree. This album and this song, to me, this is probably my favorite song on this record, is Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of, which when I first saw it, I felt like, well, that's a very kind of choppy song title. Like doesn't really roll off the tongue. What do you think that's shortened to on their set list? Stuck? You think they just write stuck. And that's it? But yeah, that's
because
that's
even if you abbreviate it, it's longer than stuck.
Stuck in a moment, maybe. That's probably. It's always fascinating to me to see the shorthand on people's set lists.
Yeah.
All right, so top 3, Nathaniel. What's your number 2?
Oh, we're doing like an underrated one now.
No, whatever you want.
No,
whatever
it doesn't
you
have to be.
Well, I want to jump on that as well. The underrated. I mean, I'm torn between two. One would be Gloria off October, but I'm going to go for something else. I'm going to go with Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own, because I think the chorus is wonderful. And what he's doing. I think I always wanted that chorus to go longer, like repeat a couple of times.
And which album is that on?
That's on How to Dismantle.
That's right, How to Dismantle. Yep.
Well, like what The Edge does as well. Just a nice little part over the top. I think that's an underrated song. Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own. Great lyrics as well. Great song. So that would be my underrated one.
All right, Nick.
All right, so for me, this is not underrated at all. One of their biggest hits. But I think maybe because of that, maybe we'll stay away from talking about the guitar sound on this one. I don't know. It's not, just super obvious to me. New Year's Day, that guitar sound again. I wouldn't even know where to get started doing that guitar sound without consulting the internet and getting the exact. But on my own, I couldn't recreate that, and it's so big. And when I think of like a song that is meant to be performed in a stadium, that's one of the first places my head goes. That it's like that couldn't have been on one of their, like, it couldn't have been on Boy or something, right? Like, it had to come as they were getting bigger. I mean, I by War they were playing stadiums, right? Or like larger theaters or arenas, probably. Not stadiums, but they were. It definitely is projecting the size, like what they were going for. They're setting their attention to play the biggest play, like it's the biggest sound to me.
Yeah, they make. I think from day one they were making arena rock, stadium rock stuff. Like it was just going to be a matter of time before everybody else caught up.
Yeah, small stages could not contain them.
No. Although Red Rocks did a hell of a job.
Yeah.
Have you been to Red Rocks, Nathaniel?
No, I would love to.
Oh,
I'd
you
love
should
to
totally go. You should just go anytime. There's a great little hiking spot around. You should hike all the way around
Yeah,
the Red Rocks. Yep, it's
I've
great.
seen it. Looks great. It looks
It's
like an
great.
amazing.
That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite venues.
Yeah.
All right. How many? Do we have one more each?
Mm-hmm.
How about favorite tone?
Okay. Favorite tone. I'm going with. Okay, and then I'm going to do one slight honorable mention. I'm going to go favorite tone. Okay, this is from left field, and I'm just going to do this because I was just hearing this morning. I really like his tone on Helter Skelter from Rattling Home.
Interesting.
You know, we've said our
Yeah.
piece about When Love Comes to Town on the BB King episode.
Yeah.
Spoiler, Nathaniel, you two are not a blues band.
No, they are not.
They're not.
Spoiler,
jammers.
I like that song.
It's a good song. I mean, that's the thing in itself. I remember as a kid, it was even an interview or in a book or a magazine or something, and it was like how to play like the Edge.
Yeah.
And like number 4 or 5 on the list was ignore the blues. It literally said that. It
Oh,
literally
totally.
said that. And
Yeah.
like I was listening recently and I was thinking a couple of things. Number one, how many times do you hear him bend a string? Not often.
Not often.
He's like the inverse of Gilmore. Right?
It's crazy. There's literally only a handful. There's I think Twilight on Boy. He does like a unison bend and it's slightly flat. If you're going to nitpick, there's that. There's maybe 1 or 2 more, and that's it. But then, how bluesy does he get? Say, for example, on Desire, the guitar on the solo, you know, a little bit bluesy there. Again, discotheque, the riff. I think a lot of us guitar players would on that riff, the down, dun, 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 you'd probably maybe do a slight quarter bend on one of those notes, make it a little bit bluesy. He doesn't, for a reason. So yeah, kind of ignore the blues if you got to play like the Edge. I kind of like that.
Which every time I see them playing with BB King, I'm like, what's going on? What's happening here?
Madness.
All right, Nick, favorite tone?
Sunday Bloody Sunday.
Sunday Bloody
It's
Sunday.
a little bit more elemental than the other stuff.
Are we talking the live version or the studio version?
Oh, the live version is great. I'm talking about the studio version, but I mean, I don't know. Either one. Yeah. They're both just so good. To me, it's a little bit more elemental. It's like I can hear how to make it, but it sounds so good. Just the bass tone of that riff. Also, I picked 2 tracks from War because War is my album. And I think it's such an easy riff. I've definitely used it to teach a lot of guitar students and say cool things about the Edge and leaving that high E ringing out and like that, how that's a thing. Also, though, underrated part of that song is the acoustic part.
Mm-hmm.
When it's that part and it's like a little warbly, it's a little out of tune. Love it. And I think that like Edge's rhythm thing, like we're talking all about how his rhythm applies to like delay electric guitar, but when he plays acoustic guitar on Seconds on War, that's another one that's like mostly acoustic stuff, track 2, and his acoustic playing is so great. He just has such a great right hand thing going, and that we talked about the percussive thing, and like on acoustic, it really you get an opportunity to hear that in a different way, and I love that.
Dig it. All right, Nathaniel, last pick. Guest gets last pick. Favorite tone?
Again, look, I literally wrote this down earlier. Favorite tones. I have a huge list. But see,
does everybody from Manchester have the same handwriting?
I got shocking handwriting. So yeah, we probably all do.
Gee Louise.
I write in capital letters. I'm sorry.
Well,
man.
I feel like I saw Noel write something, and he writes in all capital letters too.
That's unfortunately where the comparison ends.
All right. Anyway, sorry.
But see, it's like, is it Explorer tone? Is it Strat tone? Is it like Les Paul tone?
Give us a couple.
You're
the guest. You get to pick more.
All right. I'm gonna say all the ones that I've written down. Pride. Obviously, we spoke about that loads. About it. Where the Streets Have No Name. Another one. just a wonderful. But I've literally wrote down here all of Achtung Baby. Especially, I've written the solo on Even Better Than the Real Thing. The solo, the tone he gets on that is wonderful with the effects. Mysterious Ways, The Fly. I don't know, Beautiful Day, Vertigo. I'm going to go with, because it's so fun to play as well when you get the settings right. I'll go with Beautiful Day.
Yeah.
Just for that section. And then.
Your millennial roots are showing through.
I know, I'm
It's
sorry.
great. No, it's great. I love it.
But that's a hard question because he's got so many good ones. But I'll
Yeah,
go
right.
today, as of right now, I'll go with Beautiful Day.
Dig it. Now, what are the chances when you two play Chicago that Edge is going to stroll through the shop? Has he been through before?
To the best of my knowledge, no.
Okay.
No. But please, God, make that. Is that going to happen? I hope so.
It's
I'll be cool, though. I'll be cool. I won't, I won't fanboy. I won't, do anything.
You can show him. You can pull up the episode on your phone. And be like, I was on a podcast talking about.
and
you
he'll be
guys.
like, no,
Just
no, I
saying.
saw that. I do know he has seen rig rundowns.
I have, but I haven't put them out on because I did one when I was, there's a video of me when I'm about 16, and I did an arrangement of With or Without You, and it's on YouTube somewhere.
Oh wow.
It's somewhere. Yeah, I'll have to try and find it.
But
Yeah,
you got to send that over.
Yeah, I'll have to. I'd be kind of embarrassed now as to what it's like, but I haven't posted any. The U2 songs, I haven't done many. I think they're kind of hard because there's so many layers,
Yeah.
and there's so much that
I would love to hear you do a full arrangement of a U2 song.
Well, yeah, I might post that soon. The With or Without It, because I've never done it. I've never posted it, but I have. It's on, like I said, it's on the internet somewhere. I'd love to do a version of Beautiful Day, but there's just so much going on.
There's so much going on. Yeah.
But it's a good challenge, though.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to sort of break away from what is there to
Yeah.
figure out a way to put it all together.
But now that we mention it, when we were chatting about Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of, I think that'd be really nice. Just solo guitar, nice strat, nice tone, neck pickup.
Mhm.
It could be, really soulful. That could be a good one to maybe look at, I think.
All right.
We'll be on the lookout for that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, fellas, I think we did it.
I think we did.
I think we did
That
it.
was a lot of fun.
All right, Nathaniel,
Really
thanks for hanging with us. Always great to catch up and talk with you. And
we always love to see your videos,
yeah.
whether you have an Edge video coming up or not. I'm always watching.
right.
I'm always excited when you put out a new one.
Thank you.
we'll put
let's
links
do
to
it.
all your stuff down below. And if any of y'all are in Chicago, go by Chicago Music Exchange. Say hi to Nathaniel.
Yes. Please come check it out and say hello.
And if your name happens to be Edge, we're talking specifically to you.
Yes.
All right. We'll see y'all next time.
Cheers, lads.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nathaniel, for coming on. And don't forget to check out Nathaniel on Instagram at Zeppelin Barnatra is
We'll
his
put links
handle.
down there.
And we want to thank Voodoo Lab again.
Yes.
You got two big fans right here, so thank you for
Clean
sponsoring
power.
today's episode.
Clean power.
That's right.
Just get a t-shirt that says Clean Power.
Oh, I like that. I'd wear that.
I'd wear it. Totally. You can have that for free, Voodoo Lab.
Yeah,
Send us a shirt.
you got to send us.
a shirt. Yeah.
And don't
Yeah.
forget to get at us. Send us an email at 100guitarists@premierguitar.com. Text or leave voicemail at 319-423-9734. And we would love if you would review and rate our podcast, and then also subscribe and like, depending on which format you're listening. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else you might find your podcasts.
Or find podcasts or downloaded.
And tell the world.
That's right.
Let everybody know that you're listening and you're keeping up.
That's right. All right. Next week, who are we talking about next week? Next week, we're going to spill the beans. Next week, we're talking about Vince Gill. Something for the country fans, which Nick is a massive country fan.
I'm going to have to talk about how I was really damaged by 90s country.
It's okay. It's okay. There's some great guitar playing on that stuff. I'm going to tell you. We'll get to the bottom of it.
That's
All
true.
right.
That's true.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week.